I'm Anthony Flint, and this is the Land Matters Podcast. 4 times a year in the Lincoln Institute magazine Landlines, we publish a special feature we call the Mayor's Desk, interviews with chief executives from cities around the world. We talk to leaders who are innovating, taking a fresh approach to governing, and, truth be known, paying some special attention to urban planning. Our latest Q&A is with Randall Woodfin, mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. When he was elected in 2017, he was the youngest mayor in over a century. Now 40 and nearly a year into his second term, he's made revitalization of the city's 99 neighborhoods a top priority, along with enhancing education, fostering a climate of economic opportunity, and leveraging public-private partnerships. In a city battered by population and manufacturing loss, including iron and steel industries that once thrived there, Woodfin looked to education and youth as keys to a better future. He set up Birmingham Promise, which provides apprenticeships and college tuition assistance to local high school graduates. He also came up with Pardons for Progress, a mayoral pardon of 15,000 misdemeanor marijuana possession charges dating back to 1990. That had been a barrier to employment. Woodfin is a graduate of Morehouse College and Samford University's Cumberland School of Law. He was an assistant city attorney for 8 years before running for mayor and served as president of the Birmingham Board of Education as well. He was kind enough to take time out to connect with me recently, and here's the interview. How do you think your vision for urban revitalization played into the large number of first-time voters who turned out for you?
I think my vision for urban revitalization, which on the ground, what I call neighborhood revitalization, played a significant role in not just usual voters coming out to the polls to support me, but new voters as well. I think the combination of both, those who always vote and new voters around this topic, they chose me as their candidate to support and vote for as their next mayor, incoming mayor, because I listened to them more than I talked. And then towards that vision, I shared with them based on what the feedback I got from them, what I actually wanted to do on their behalf. And so I think many voters have felt that, and residents have felt, listen, I've had these problems next to my home, to the right or to the left of me for years. They've been ignored. My calls have gone unanswered. Services have not been rendered. I wanted to change. I think what I shared with them was, these are the things I am going to make a priority. I made urban neighborhood revitalization a priority. And I think that wasn't just to get votes. I think it needed to remain the priority because that's the priority of the citizens I wanted to serve, those who always vote and new voters.
Even without Build Back Better, there's a ton of federal funding on its way to state and local governments. What are your plans to distribute that money efficiently and get the greatest leverage?
You know, as you've stated, these monies we're receiving in federal resources through ARPA funds and now the infrastructure deal. So this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to really supercharge infrastructure upgrades and investments we need to make in our city and community. This type of money probably hasn't been on the ground since the New Deal. When you think about that, there's an opportunity for the city of Birmingham, citizens and communities to win. And so the first thing it was important for us to do is set up a system and a structure. We set up a unified command system to receive these ARPA funds. And now we're going to enhance and slightly change that system to support receiving these infrastructure dollars. In one hand, in my left hand, City of Birmingham is an entitlement city and we'll receive direct funds. In my right hand, we have to be aggressive and go after competitive grants for shovel-ready projects. With our Stimulus Command Center, what we have done is partner not only with our city council, but we partner with other agencies on the ground, our transportation agency, the BJCTA. We have an inland port, so we partner with Birmingham Port. We partner with our airport as well as our waterworks department. All of these agencies are public agencies who happen to serve the same citizens I'm responsible for serving. For us to approach all these infrastructure resources through a collective approach, one, that's the best way. But let's break that down. What does that mean? There are many needs in our city related to infrastructure needs that have been ignored for 30, 50 years. Dealing with our water sewer, which is very outdated. Dealing with our transportation department, getting our citizens from point A to B. Dealing with our inland port related to being a significant boost from economic standpoint related to logistics, where the city of Birmingham not only sits in the middle of the state, but also sits in the entire middle of the Southeast. Looking at that through an economic development lens, we have an opportunity with this funding to supercharge not only our economic identity, but also to make real investments in our infrastructure that our citizens use every day.
You've established a distinct team to take in and track this federal funding, that
Absolutely.
command center you mentioned?
Yes, there is a uniform command center, a designated team of people whose only job is to make sure the direct funds we get that come directly to the city of Birmingham, that we're fiscally sound, that we're doing everything by the rules, and that we are taking in different requests and then cataloging those requests and putting those requests in the hierarchy of priority. And so we can leverage those funds and dispense them in a way that improves our citizens' quality of life. But that stimulus command is also responsible for being aggressive and taking this umbrella approach and coordinated effort with all the other agencies that touch infrastructure needs, such as our airport that I don't control the day-to-day, our transit system that I don't control the day-to-day, our water system that I'm not responsible for the day-to-day, as well as our inland port. That coordinated effort allows us the best opportunity to leverage more additional infrastructure dollars that are competitive in nature.
The Lincoln Institute's done a lot of work with legacy cities, aiming for a balance of revitalization and equity concerns. What, in your view, are the key elements of community investment that truly pays off?
This is how I explain everything that happens from a neighborhood revitalization standpoint. I first share the problem through story. City of Birmingham is fortunate to be a city made up of 23 communities and 99 neighborhoods. And when you dive deep into that, just consider going to a particular neighborhood in a particular block. You have a mother in a single family household where she is the responsible breadwinner and owner. She has a child or a grandchild that stays with her. She walks out into her front porch. She looks to her right. There is an abandoned, dilapidated house that's been there for years that needs to be torn down. She looks to her right. It's an empty lot next to her. When she walks out to that sidewalk, she's afraid for her child or her grandchild to play or ride the bicycle on that sidewalk because it's not bikeable. And that street, when she pulls out of her driveway, hasn't been paved in years. And that neighborhood park she wants to walk her child or grandchild down to hasn't had upgraded adequate playground equipment in quite some time. And now she's ready to bring her same child or walk her same child or grandchild home because it's getting dark, but the street lights don't work. And then she's ready to feed her child or grandchild, but she's reminded that they live in a food desert. These are the things we are attempting to solve for. One is blight removal, of getting rid of that dilapidated structure to the right of her. We triple down on our effort and focus on housing. We need to go vertical with more single family homes that are affordable and market rate. So our neighborhoods, what I would define as not having snackitude neighborhoods where you remove blight, but now you have a house, empty lot, house, empty lot, empty lot. We have to pave more streets. We have to have adequate playground equipment in that park so that child or grandchild can swing. We have to partner with our power company to get more LED lights in that neighborhood so people feel safe. And we have to invest in what I would call healthy food options so our citizens can have a better quality of life. These are the things related to neighborhood revitalization that I frame and address to make sure people want to live in these neighborhoods.
What are your top priorities in addressing climate change? And how does Birmingham feel the impacts of warming and what can be done about it?
So climate change is real. Let me be very clear in that and stating that climate change is real. How does an inland city? We're not near the coast, and so we don't feel the necessary impact right away that other cities do on the coast, like Mobile would in the state of Alabama. However, when those certain weather things happen on the coast in Alabama, they do have an impact on the city of Birmingham. We also have an issue of tornadoes, where I believe they continue to increase over the years, and they infect a city like Birmingham that sits in a bowl in the valley. And so we're keen on that. Around air quality, the city of Birmingham was a city founded from a blue-collar standpoint of iron and steel and other things made here. And although that's not driving the economy anymore, there's still vestiges of what I would define as companies that produce product here that has a negative impact on our air quality. We have a Superfund site right in the heart of our city that has affected people's air quality, which I think is totally unacceptable. And so addressing climate change from a social justice standpoint has been a priority to the city of Birmingham and this administration. And what we are doing is partnering with the EPA for our on the ground local issues. From a national standpoint, city of Birmingham joined other cities as it relates to the Paris deal, et cetera. But I think this conversation of climate change can't be in isolation of a city. And unfortunately, the city of Birmingham doesn't have home rule. And so having the conversations with our governor about the importance of the state of Alabama actually championing and joining the cause of we need to make more noise and be more intentional and aggressive about climate change issues has been a struggle.
What about your efforts to create safe, affordable housing, including a land bank?
Related to housing, I look at it from the standpoint of a toolbox. Within this toolbox, you have various tools to address housing. I think the first thing we've attempted to do is have an actual land bank. At the height of the city of Birmingham's population in the late 60s, early 70s, there was about 340,000 residents. We're down to 206,000 residents in our city limits. So you can imagine the cost and burden that's had on our housing stock. Our housing stock has taken a significant decline. When you add on homes passing from one generation to the next and not necessarily being taken care of, we've had a considerable amount of blight. And so with state law, what we've tried to do is get creative. City of Birmingham, like other cities across the nation, we created a land bank. This land bank was created prior to my administration, but what we've attempted to do as an administration is make our land bank more efficient. And then driving that efficiency is not just looking towards those who can buy land in bulk, but also empowering the next door neighbor or the neighborhood or the church that's on the ground within that neighborhood to be able to participate in purchasing the lot next door to make sure, again, that we can get rid of these snag-a-tooth blocks or snag-a-tooth neighborhoods and actually go vertical with single-family homes. I think another tool within that toolbox is looking at schools that are no longer open and partnering with our housing authority. So I'm gonna split that up. Related to our actual empty school buildings, the ones that the city own, if it's in proximity of an area that's seeing revitalization, what we attempt to do is to hold on to that school, get a private developer partner, but make sure if it's marketed around that area that we strike a balance in refurbing that school to make it actually affordable housing within that same footprint. So there's actual mixed use. Again, we partner with our local housing authority to get rid of these mega concentrated poverty sites in the form of not just public housing, but multifamily housing, giving our public housing residents access to more vouchers and through seminars, empowering them that they can one day have a front yard for their child and go after single family property as well. I think the last thing we're doing is acknowledging that in urban cores, it's hard to get private developers at the table. And so what we've been doing is with some of our ARPA funds is setting aside money to offset some of these developer costs to support not only affordable but market rate housing within our city limits to make sure our citizens have a seat at the table so they can feel empowered if they choose to want to actually have a home, that there's a path for them. Related to homelessness, City of Birmingham is fortunate enough that we have a very great relationship with the Secretary of HUD. And we were one of the few cities that received $5 million since the new secretary has been in office over the last year and a half, or close to a year and a half of addressing homelessness. We acknowledge $5 million is not the biggest drop in the bucket, but it is substantial enough to where, separate from focusing on the umbrella approach of organizations that provide emergency housing, we now want to play in the long-term housing. We also want to work with the state and partner with the state to address mental health issues, as well as our Veterans Hospital, to really look at how we support our veterans who are on the streets. The last thing I would say is that with the forever weather changing, we need a permanent place for a warming station, which is separate from emergency housing or mid and long-term housing, because we can't get everyone off the street at one time. And so all of those things are ways we've done to address homelessness in our community.
Finally, tell us a little bit about your belief in guaranteed income, which has been offered to single mothers in a pilot program. You've joined several other mayors in this effort. How does that reflect your approach to governing?
So the city of Birmingham is fortunate to be a part of a pilot program that offers guaranteed income for single family mothers in our city. This guaranteed income is $375 over a 12-month period. So that's $375 a month. No strings attached, no requirements of what they can spend the money on. Let me tell you why this pilot program is important. Every city in this nation has its own story, has its own character, has its own set of unique challenges. At the same time, we all share similar fates and have similar issues. The city of Birmingham has its fair share of poverty. And we don't just have poverty, we have concentrated poverty. And again, in addressing poverty, looking at this from a matter of a toolbox, there are various tools in this toolbox to reduce poverty and break up the monotony of concentrated poverty in our community. One of those examples is a program I have on the ground called Birmingham Promise, where if you finish Birmingham City Schools, you can attend a state school, 2-year or 4-year college, tuition free, no questions asked, no GPA, no certain GPA, no SAT or ACT score. The college university accepts you, you go tuition free. The whole point of that, again, is that's not charity work. That is intentional work of an economic development play, but also having an intentional model that reduces poverty. I believe the guaranteed income is another tool within that toolbox of reducing poverty in Birmingham. Birmingham has over 60% of households are led by single women. That is not something I'm bragging about, but that is a fundamental fact that exists. A lot of these single family mothers struggle. And part of this income, I think we all would agree, no one can live off $375 a month. But if you had this $375 for additional funding in your pocket or your homes, would that help your household? Does that help keep food on the table? Does it help keep your utilities paid? Does it help keep clothing on your children's back and shoes on their feet? Does it help you get from point A to B to keep your job to provide for your child? This is why I believe this guaranteed income pilot program will be helpful. We only had 120 slots, and so it's not necessarily the largest amount of people, but I can tell you over 7,000 households applied for this. So the need is there for us to do every single thing we can to provide more opportunities for our families to be able to take care of their families.
Randall Woodfin, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
This interview will appear in print and online as the Mayor's Desk feature in Landlines magazine. At the Lincoln Institute, we've been very much engaged in legacy cities, those post-industrial places in the Rust Belt and elsewhere in the Northeast and down south, as is the case with Birmingham. You can learn more about that work by visiting our website, lincolninst.edu. While there, you might also check out our work in municipal fiscal health and the importance of having some kind of system for spending all that federal money that's on the way. We just published a report that looks at the relationship between state and city governments that is also germane. That's right on the homepage, and perhaps easiest to remember, follow us on Twitter. The handle is @LandPolicy. That'll do it for this episode of the Land Matters podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Flynn. I hope you'll rate, review, subscribe, and recommend the show to anyone interested in cities and the adventurous mayors leading them. Until next time, thanks for listening.